Treacherous conditions continued as lifesavers made another attempt to rescue the $10,000 rubber ducky, which got into difficulty yesterday as lifesavers tried to retrieve Stephen Finance's body near a rock ledge. The choppy, unpredictable swell overturned the ducky, the rescuers themselves having to be rescued. This morning, lifesavers went out to re-evaluate the situation. They found the boat wedged 7 metres behind a rock ledge.
The duck has actually got a hole in it, so we're hoping it'll stay up for long enough to get to tow it back to Newcastle.
But that wasn't the only worry. After 3 hours working to secure the boat, once afloat, quick work was needed to prevent it being dragged back onto the rocks. Back on shore, lifesavers assessed the damage. As the cyclonic conditions continue along the coast, surf lifesavers say it highlights the need for caution even by the most experienced swimmers. Just yesterday, 3 rescues were performed in the same vicinity as was the scene of Thursday's tragedy.
A rip can get anyone at any time. We've had a lot of northerly swell which causes a lot of rips along the beaches, so you've got to stay between the flags.
Today, the dangerous surf conditions warning was lifted at Newcastle beaches, but lifesavers advise that coastal conditions change and should be checked daily.
Compass Airlines stopped operating due to financial problems. However, loyal staff has continued to work to get the company airborne again. These former flight attendants and reservation staff were in Newcastle today to raise money and support for the company.
They can sign our petitions, which has been really good so far this morning, and also by writing to your local MP, writing to the federal government showing that they want Compass back.
Gary Jones and other former employees are relying on family or the dole to survive while they fight for the company's future.
The old money situation is definitely getting low. We've all basically applied for the dole. We're Mr Keating's paying our wage at the moment, and we are very much relying on each other for saving.
The Friends of Compass say public rallies will be held in most capital cities on Thursday. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
The 3-storey building, covering 4,500 square metres, will include a car park, administration offices, conference rooms and council chamber. 2 of its main features, a large open-air community area and its curved roof designed for added light and ventilation. With final contracts between the council and Newcastle developers RW Black signed today, it was then a last-minute look over the site. A new headquarters has been in the planning stages for 10 years, the largest and most controversial hurdle, deciding on where to locate it in a shire that stretches from Cooroowa to Hexham and east to the Bay Area.
The growth area is here in Raymond Terrace. It is the traditional centre, and Raymond Terrace, Lakeside and Medowie, that is where the population is growing.
Cramped conditions and a lack of centralisation also reason for change.
We have council offices working in up to 12 different buildings. It's efficiency. To have them all in one building is desirable.
Construction will start within 3 weeks, the complex completed by February next year. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
The Breakers already have their heavyweights out for tomorrow night's clash. It's an important game for the club to impress the Australian Soccer Federation and to keep the national selectors in touch with local talent.
It's not often that a club side can get the chance to play against the national side. I think the players are wanting to go out there and I think play well in front of Eddie Thompson, the national coach, and say, look Eddie, you've not selected me this time, but this is what I can do. Don't forget me next time.
For national coach Thompson, it's a chance to give his players a final workout, and the players will be aware positions for the team against the touring Swedish side are up for grabs. The Breakers are coming off a disappointing loss to Apia and need a confidence booster against the Socceroos.
It's a chance to look at the problems and for the players to address the problems, rather than be looking at me to address everything. Let them do it themselves out on the park, knowing that if they let a goal in tomorrow, it is no problem to me and no consequence to them.
The game starts at 7:45 tomorrow night. The National Soccer League will go into a 3-week break during the Socceroos-Sweden clashes. The Breakers are taking 1 week off training to regroup for the remaining 8 NSL matches.
Mineral sand mining leaves its mark on the land. The Japanese-owned RZM is shifting its 130-tonne dredge from a 20-hectare site near Madawi to a smaller 5-hectare site across the road. The bush has been flattened, its topsoil pushed aside and a large pond has been dug to float the dredge. The site is identified by conservationists as one of the last natural outposts for the area's endangered koala population, with the bulldozers cutting through a koala corridor.
Every effort is taken during the time of restoration to re-establish corridors and to even leave corridors where possible. With our EISs, that is all taken into account. The disturbance is only for a short time. After several years, the trees are back to a stage where the koalas do come back.
Well, 30 years' time, what do they eat in the meantime?
Of the hundreds of thousands of tonnes of sand filtered through the dredging process, only 1% yields precious mineral deposits of rutile, zircon and silica. The sand is used in paint pigments, welding rods and in titanium metal. Most is exported. RZM began mining in the late 60s and employs 30 people in the area.
We need the jobs now, but how much do we have to give up?
The work is carried out in accordance with an environmental impact study passed in the 1980s. Now conservation groups are calling for a review.
Perhaps the Port Stephens Shire Council and all councils have to looking at these conditions every 3 years and then thinking again, because the environmental awareness now in the 90s is much more keen than what it was in the 60s. You know, anything went in those days.
The corridors once trodden by coal miners' boots will now be filled with the sounds of kindergarten classes. The former BHP mine fell silent 4 years ago, just when the Belmont Baptist Church School was looking to expand. 6 church families sold their homes to raise the money to buy the entire 26-hectare site and moved into the nearby mine's deputies' cottages. The school's principal, Diane Wooldridge, has taken up residence.
We had looked at lots of land around the area, but we felt that God had set this one aside for us because as soon as we walked in, we could see the potential of having children here.
Church and school families, along with about 30 contractors, are transforming the mine's buildings into classrooms. The old bathhouse is now the primary wing. Administrative blocks have become science and technics classrooms. Parents have re-roofed buildings and helped with painting and landscaping. An old engine shed may be converted to a library, while the heritage-listed poppet heads could be left as a historical backdrop.
The commitment of parents, that is church members and parents in the school, about 400 people over 3 years, have committed $1.7 million.
More than 300 kinder to Year 8 students should troop in at the beginning of the school year. The project is expected to cost around $4 million, with the remaining area yet to be developed. The venture should prove profitable.
But the value of the property in the long term will be far greater than anywhere near what we are paying.
In the serenity of the century-old St Augustine's Church in Merriweather this afternoon, Sister Beatrice Pate was practising her duties as a deacon. But her mind was on the more earthly and fiery issue of the Canberra Diocese push for the ordination of women priests going before the Supreme Court today.
A very sad day when Christians need to be divided like that and feel they have to do something as desperate really as go to the civil court to sort out a matter that's really a matter for the church.
Sister Beatrice is one of 9 women in the diocese waiting to be ordained. But with the debate having raged for more than 2 decades, Sister Beatrice says she's tired and frustrated of constantly being denied the priest's role.
It seems to me it's like if women had been able to be in the medical profession when they first were doctors, there was opposition from the male doctors. If those men had said, well, we'll allow women to dress up like doctors and carry a stethoscope and we'll let them talk to people about their health problems, but they mustn't prescribe any drugs and they mustn't operate, of course it would be nonsense.
The diocese views the Bishop of Canberra and Goulburn's efforts to ordain women next month as a test case for its own ambitions. But with the Bishop of Newcastle, the Right Reverend Alfred Holland, supportive of women priests, Sister Beatrice believes she'll be ordained this year.
I very much hope that it will be resolved this year, because it seems to me that it's causing a great division, not just in our church, but it's causing a scandal in the community that the problem goes on and on.
Parking his panel van in a quiet Woodstock street at 2:30 this afternoon, Michael Pandell was about to walk over to his workplace, Coulter TV Installations, with the company payroll. In the bank bag were the weekly wages of 23 employees, amounting to a large sum of money. Then suddenly, the 19-year-old was attacked from behind, being hit on the head with a lump of wood, and the payroll stolen. Resident Rosemary Atwood was returning from doing the shopping when she saw Mr Pandell lying on the road.
He was laying flat out and shaking like as if he was having a fit.
Mrs Atwood ran to her house for blankets and a pillow to comfort the young man who was unconscious.
No sound, just like a hurt murmur, and that's all. He didn't talk at all.
As Mr Pandell was taken to John Hunter Hospital by ambulance, police swarmed on the area, trying to find clues to the attack. But officers say that early leads are scant. So far, no eyewitnesses to the crime have come forward, so there's no description of the offender. Mayfield Police have appealed to anyone with any information to contact them on 683056. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
About 10 o'clock this morning, this brown cloud was seen spewing from the steelworks. Kate Graham from BHP's Public Affairs Unit identified the plume.
From watching the video footage, I would suspect that it's it's iron oxide dust that's come out from the steelmaking area when they've been charging hot metal.
The iron oxide dust lingered above BHP for a couple of minutes before it dispersed into the atmosphere.
Well, obviously it's not clean air. Yes, it's pollution.
Alan Crapp from the State Pollution Control Commission says it's unlikely that BHP will be charged over the matter.
We would have to prove to take action against the company that the emission was as a result of improper or inefficient operation. And I would have thought that the emission was somewhat typical of routine operation from that part of the steelmaking process.
Late this afternoon, there was a second emission from the company. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
This is an unlikely group of environmentalists.
I would call myself a greenhead.
Maybe not a greenie, but certainly environmentally aware. A new clause in contracts for public works jobs with the sewerage scheme on the West Lakes states workers must attend a course in sediment control, disposal of pump water and the protection and removal of vegetation.
Construction of works this close to Lake Macquarie, it's a fairly sensitive issue.
In the past, Lake Macquarie Council has received complaints about sewerage workers' respect for the environment. Public Works accepts the criticism and believes it should be able to do better.
Sewerage workers admit they aren't the most popular people in the community. This new attempt to educate staff may just flush that image down the drain. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Work on the Swansea Bends deviation has crept along over past months as state government funding allocations slowly dwindled. This week those funds finally ran dry, with the freeway just a few hundred metres short of completion. A spokesman for the RTA said some light maintenance and landscaping will continue on the site until the next state budget later this year, when it's expected that the final allocation will be made to complete the project. But there still remains one last snag. A bridge is planned for the new section of freeway to provide access to the planned Caves Beach Resort. Despite assurances from the developers Gordon Pacific that the resort project is going ahead, the RTA still has had no contact regarding the future of the bridge. If the resort developers can't build the bridge on time, the RTA says it may be forced to roll on regardless of the Caves Beach project. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
"65-year-old Maitland Alderman Noel Unicum was recognised for a lifetime's work in local government.
I go into it there to see what's good for the people and what's not so good, and roll the sleeves up and say, well, come on, we'll thrash this out.
The Dean of Newcastle University's Faculty of Engineering, Professor Alan Roberts, receives a medal for service to mechanical engineering.
It is a recognition, I believe, for this work that we're doing here and, as I say, the standing for the Faculty of Engineering.
Don Geddes adds an OAM to his name for services to the community, among which was his role as SES coordinator during the earthquake.
When I wear it, I'll be wearing it for all the volunteers that worked for the SES during the earthquake.
Alwyn Druce heads the Lord Mayor's Earthquake Appeal Fund, responsible for the resettlement of almost 3,000 householders.
I believe a lot of people have been put back where they were before the earthquake.
For Hilton Hayes of the Crossroads Christian Fellowship for the Handicapped, the medal helps promote a 30-year campaign for understanding for the disabled.
It's only a beginning, as it were. I wish I was 30 years younger.
Mount Hutton's Bob Nelson has fought on since World War II for a better deal on service pensions for merchant mariners, capturing the spirit of the Aussie battler.
Got to be goers, everybody. Doesn't matter how old you are.
Defence personnel Captain Garth Wheat, Petty Officer James Thomas and Warrant Officer Class 2 Ian Petch also rank on the honours list.
It's been touted as the biggest water polo tournament in the Southern Hemisphere, with some officials saying it's the biggest in the world. 107 matches will be played over the long weekend in 3 divisions, men's A and B grades and women's open division. 46 teams from all over the state are taking part, with many teams from the Tamworth region. And included amongst the players are quite a few guest players from overseas and interstate, giving the carnival a great deal of prestige. The finals of all divisions will be held on Monday afternoon, with host club Central Newcastle hoping to grab their share of the glory. Taree CBD came alive to the sound of the Aquatic Festival procession, an event that tracks thousands from throughout the state. And most of the carnival capers are being played out on the Manning River with the powerboats the Star Turn. Of those competing, the 5 and 6 litre displacement and open boats hold the spotlight, and the unlimited unrestricted also provide plenty of interest. In the 6 litre class, the weekend's racing should settle down to a dogfight between Queenslander Trojan, Liberty from Moree and Seabreeze from Windsor. The Manning River inboard is the highlight tomorrow, with the Jeff Stevenson Memorial, the Strait Course Classic and the King of the River, the big events on Monday. It's been touted as the biggest water polo tournament in the Southern Hemisphere, with some officials saying it is the biggest in the world. 107 matches will be played over the long weekend in 3 divisions, men's A and B grades and women's open division. 46 teams from all over the state are taking part, with the Central Newcastle club playing hosts, but they won't be lying down to the name of chivalry, as they are keen on grabbing a few of the titles up for grabs themselves. The finals are on Monday afternoon. At Rathmines Park, the Lake Macquarie Newcastle Catamaran Club's long weekend regatta is shaping as one of the best on record, with over 100 boats entered for the annual event. All classes of catamarans are represented in the 5-race series, making it one of the biggest regattas of its type in the state, with sailors coming from Sydney, Wollongong, the Central Coast and the Hunter Valley. Today, Ben Vaughan was successful in the Marrie Cat division, Jeff Adams had a win in the A class, Brian McLaughlin victorious in the NACRA 5.8 and Jake Kaiser showing a clean sheet to his rivals in the 14 square NACRA. And an essential part of surf lifesaving was launched at Catherine Hill Bay this morning, a brand new inshore rescue boat courtesy of Colin Adelaide. The honour of dousing the duck with a traditional champagne and officially christening the craft and all who sail in her went to Mrs Broom, wife of the Catherine Hill Bay Bowling Club president. The big overseas contingent had mixed fortune around the Belmont layout, Englishman Ian Garbett chipping in on the 10th. His 70 is still well in the hunt, but long-time entrant and Belmont course record holder, Kep Richardson of the United States, found the going tough with a 76 to be 9 off the pace. Dave Robertson of the Australian club in Sydney struggled also, but saved par with a marvellous chip on the first to remain square with the card. Another expected to fare well is Englishman Gary Wolstenholme, and his even par round of 72 was mixed with birdies such as this, and a couple of ordinary holes by his high standards. But setting the course alight was current Australian amateur champion Lucas Parsons of Orange. Parsons turned at 4 under the card, and this 4-iron second shot on 10 gave him an eagle opportunity. His putt looked good, but he had to settle for birdie to go to 5 under, his finishing score. The second round is tomorrow, where the cut will be made, and the final 36 holes will be played on Monday.
Thousands of people jammed the Newcastle foreshore for the Harbour Regatta, and it was crowded in the water too as skippers gave landlubbers a boating bonanza, with a look back on the days of our forefathers as well as more modern times. It was also a chance for enthusiasts to emulate the bigger vessels with a display of model boats. There must have been some bloated bellies today after yesterday's prawn-eating championships, competitors downing a kilo in around 3 minutes. The regatta continues tomorrow with a highlight, the Formula One speedboat event.
And Amanda's access, but Special Penny shot clear as they run down with 200 metres left to go. Bayvane moons to second. They're followed then by High Task, and Underland Lady is running home strongly. It's Special Penny in front. She's irresistible, and Underland Lady rattling home, but Special Penny I think is going to see it out in the Scooter Kelly Memorial, and it scores right on the line. Special Penny wins.
Special Penny started at 7-1. She's irresistible at 5s, and Underland Lady also at 5-1. At Tamworth last night, and fitting with the country theme of the weekend in the inland city, race 4 was the Golden Guitar Pace over 1,980 metres, and it was an all-the-way win. Our Dancing Doris was far too good for Carew Lad, who grabbed another minor placing, and would he do. The time was 2 minutes, 30.03 seconds.
Onlookers in the city centre mall were this morning treated to some traditional Australian dance. The Booka Booka troupe is the brainchild of Ray Donovan, who has been teaching Aboriginal dances, songs and stories to children in the Bowraville area for many years. The performance was followed by a ceremony which captured some of Coffs Harbour's more recent history. The city was named after pioneer Captain John Corfe. Following a 2-month countrywide search for a Captain Corfe lookalike who would take part in the Australia Day celebrations, Earl Stevens was chosen to fill his shoes. Today he was presented with the keys to the city made out of red cedar. This reflects Coffs Harbour's origins as a timber town, thriving on the red gold of the cedar getters. Meanwhile, in Ballina, Australia Day took a special meaning for a dozen Australians who were naturalised today. The Ballina Shire Council announced its Australia Day honours. Fred Braid was chosen as Citizen of the Year for his contribution to charity. Sportsperson of the Year went to surf lifesaver Jason Sargent, and a Certificate of Merit was awarded to Millicent Avery for her work with local charities.
I wanted to get somewhere in sport, and I wanted to win and someday might represent Australia.
Well, I think she should get out and show the world that you can do things with you've got one arm, one foot, one leg, and just, let everybody know what you can do when you've got less than others.
So 2 years ago, Rebecca became involved with amputee athletics, making her debut as an unknown at the State Disabled Championships. Rebecca entered 11 events, winning gold and setting new records in every event. The following year, she improved her gold medal count for swimming and track and field events to 20. As a result, Rebecca was named Most Outstanding Overall Athlete of the entire state championships. In spite of her stardom, the training methods remain modest. For track and field, it's daily training at the local oval with Mum. Then it's up to the nearby dam for some swimming, the strength training done in a novel way. Laps of the dam are also a daily routine. Crucial to this down-to-earth approach is time out for some good old-fashioned fun. The routine is paying off. Rebecca will represent the state at the National Championships and at the Pacific School Games in Darwin in April, where she'll compete against 35 other countries. Rebecca's disability poses no liability.
No, it doesn't bother me at all. Sometimes I feel that I just have a normal hand.
Rebecca has to raise enough money to pay for her trips. If that's achieved, she knows exactly what she wants.
More gold and aiming to go to the Olympics representing Australia.
Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
The two cars were travelling in the same direction along Maitland Road towards Cessnock about 2 o'clock this morning. The wheels of the front car, a Commodore sedan, locked and it crashed into a bridge railing near Neath. The car travelling behind ran into the sedan. A passenger in the front car, a 24-year-old woman, was taken by helicopter to the John Hunter Hospital, but she was dead on arrival. Police have released her name. She was 24-year-old Jennifer Hawkins from Aberdare. The male driver of the Commodore was taken to Cessnock Hospital with minor injuries. The Police Accident Investigation Squad is continuing its inquiries. Last night, a 62-year-old man died when he lost control of his car on the F3 near Summersby. The Sydney man was travelling south on the freeway. The vehicle careered down an embankment, collided with some trees and came to rest on its roof. The man died on the way to Gosford District Hospital. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
When it comes to playing the role of Newcastle's first citizen, Lord Mayor John McNaughton considers the wearing of the robes to be much more than just pomp and ceremony.
I believe that the British heritage that those Lord Mayoral robes represent is of something of great importance in a multicultural society.
But the robes are starting to look tatty.
They're 40 years old. I don't know if you've got any 40-year-old suits, but they don't go so well after 40 years.
Tomorrow night, Council will debate whether it should be a case of out with the old and in with the new at a cost of about $25,000. Independent Alderman John Tate says Council shouldn't even be considering new robes at such a cost when the bottom is falling out of the economy's pants.
It's a really ruthless and self-serving act on the part of the Lord Mayor to attempt to have that sort of money spent on robes.
Alderman Tate says only weeks ago, Council agreed to keep Lambton Library fully operational, and now it's recommending that the facility be closed on Wednesdays.
To think about spending that sort of money, $25,000, when a fraction of that would keep this library open for that day of the week.
Public opinion also seems to be weighted against replacing the mayoral robes.
Waste of money, mate, a total waste of money.
I mean, who spends $25,000 on clothes? I don't.
Waters has had to overcome a loss in his only shot at the #1 spot in the world, and also a bad car smash which left him with a shattered jaw that took its time to heal. But now the youngster from Kulnura has overcome all those adversities, and his form against Chris Seng at the Ettalong Memorial Club in early last month showed he's back on track for another tilt at the top. Tonight, Waters goes in against experienced Craig Trotter in a fight that is vital to his chances of getting further international bouts to force his way towards a crack at a world title.